Are you about to take your first listing, or have you taken some listings and realized that you need some professional help getting your clients' houses ready for market? So if they sell for more money, you make more money and you save yourself time. I've got an interview for you. Today, I've got Jill Johns of Transformations by Jill, our go-to staging company. Jill, how are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. How are you? I'm doing fantastic.
Thank you for being on here. Thank you for being on here. So I wanted to get Jill on here to explain what she and her company does, because I think you guys are a huge value add to agents.
Thank
I
you.
know a lot of agents shy away from staging or staging consultations because of the cost, which we'll get into. But Jill, real quick, can you give us just like the 30-second version of your background, how
Sure.
you got into the business, and what your company looks like today?
Sure. Not sure I can do it in 30 seconds, but really wanted to be an interior designer in college, and I was going to school for computers. My parents said, nope, you're going to keep doing computers. So I did. I spent 23 years in computer security in corporate America and kind of got burned out really quickly. So I started my own company and started doing design. I wanted a certification, so I took a couple courses, and each one of those courses had a element of staging in it because staging was becoming a thing. This was about 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And I never thought I would own a staging company. I thought I would own a design company. But one of the realtors that is in my neighborhood, I was designing her house, and then she decided she wanted to move. So she said, help me stage it. So we took half the stuff out that we just put in, and it sold in 4 days. And then after that, she started referring me to her clients. And I would say over a course of a year, I went from a design company to a staging company. So it happened pretty quickly. I fell in love with it. I love how quick it is. There's not a lot of back and forth with clients. We move in, we make it look gorgeous within a few hours, and then it's up on the MLS for all to see. So that's a real quick version of how I got to be a stager, and then how I started owning my own staging company.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Jill, what does the business look like today? How many people do you have on staff? What does all that look like?
Yes, so we've grown throughout the years. I started in, storing stuff in my garage and in my dining room, and then my husband started complaining. At one point, we joke around. At one point, we had no dining table, we had no kitchen table, and we had no bar stools.
So there was
no place to
picking out your own furniture.
I was, but my husband says our furniture got a job. So that's usually how stagers start, is by using a little bit of their stuff until they start getting some jobs rolling in. Then they can start buying some inventory. I rented for the first couple of houses from rental companies. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that again. So I started buying. Every time I got a job, I bought more things. I went from our garage to, typically you go to a storage unit. And then once you get to 3 massive storage units, that's typically the sign to go get a warehouse. And I'm on my 3rd warehouse now. It's 9,000 square feet. It holds everything we need it to hold. I have my own box truck. I have my own internal movers, stagers. A lot of people hire that out, and I have just found economically it's better to have them work for you than have to try to hire that out at a much higher rate. Let's see, what else and then I have 10 people working for me. I have several movers, I have several lead stagers, and I have several assistants, not to mention I have some office folks who help me with all of the marketing, and then all of the paperwork that goes with staging and estimates and contracts and things like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Jill, if we've got an agent on the other side of this conversation that's maybe new or newer to the business, and they're hearing about staging, in your mind, I think you guys have 2 different services you offer. Can you explain to the folks what those 2, like when we talk about staging, what are those 2 options?
Well, it always begins with a consultation if it's somebody who's living in their home. So that is one of our services, is to go in and walk their property and tell them all the various things that need to happen. If for some reason we think, yep, we need to zhuzh this home up, or if the home's going to be vacant when it's listed, then we come back in with an estimate and we send that over. We do both occupied staging and vacant staging. And we can do as little or as much as we need to do for whatever price point. We go all the way down to $200,000 homes, all the way up to $1 million homes.
Yeah, so just to put it in layman's terms, like if you've got a client that's selling a house that they live in, we can either come in and coach them through how to arrange their own furniture, their own decor, or you guys can bring in staging, especially if it's a vacant home.
That's
so
right.
just to give the listeners context, and obviously we know it varies based on size of the home, but what would you say the average cost to the agent is for the staging consultation as well as physical staging? What would you say that ends up being?
Sure. So in Richmond, Virginia, where we're at, it's very different across the nation. I belong to two different staging associations, and I attend conferences every year. So I'm pretty up on what other stagers are doing across the nation, and some in Canada and across the world, but more so here in the States. So it varies throughout the nation. But here in Richmond, you can find consultations from $150 all the way up to $350. So it really depends, again, if we're talking about, a mid-price home versus a luxury home. It also depends on how long it takes to go through the home, how much is, needing to be discussed. So we typically charge anywhere from $195 to $250, depending on the size of the home for consultations. Now, for staging, it's the same. It's from nation to nation. Of course, folks in New York and California are charging much more for staging than what we are charge here in Richmond. They typically do it by a percentage of the sale price. Here in Richmond, you can find like a basic staging, let's say what we call a high impact space, family room, kitchen, primary bedroom, primary bath. And this is if we're having to bring everything, all the furniture, all the accessories, all the art, everything. You'll find that anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 for just a basic staging package here in Richmond. I used to be the president of the RESA Staging Association here in Richmond, so I know a little bit about what my competition is charging, and it really depends on if they only primarily work on luxury properties or if they do mid-price properties, that sort of thing. But that's kind of a general idea.
Yeah. And guys, if you're out there listening and you have not started implementing a staging consultant in your listings, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. For, let's call it roughly $200 plus or minus, to be able to have a professional go out and meet with your clients and coach them through what they need to do to get their home ready. Absolute no-brainer for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to make your listing show better, which is ultimately going to make you look better as an agent. It's going to make them happier, maybe not in the moment, but at the end of the day. And it's going to actually get the home sold. Like the most expensive thing with a listing is a listing that doesn't sell, right? So this is money I'd rather spend to ensure that we get the results. But Jill, I got to tell you, I mean, I think it edifies it shows that they're a professional real estate agent if they've got a third-party professional coming in and doing this versus like, hey, I'm the realtor and I'm going to wear all the hats. Like if I go to a dentist office and the dentist is checking me in, he's cleaning my teeth, and then he's doing the examination and handling the billing, like I'm not going back to that dentist anymore.
That's right.
So I think it builds that authority in the agent of like, hey, I'm going to have a third-party professional. It saves the agent's time, which is a huge thing. I mean, like, I'm not going to spend 3 hours coaching a client through. Like, I'm going to pay you guys your $200. You guys are going to go in, and I'm going to go get another appointment, right? We're getting
that's right. That's right.
But Jill, my favorite one is if they don't like what you have to say, I am not the villain, right?
That's
like they can hate you all day long, and I get to
right.
maintain that relationship, right?
Yes, your stager should be able to be the bad guy. You pay us pretty good amount of money to go in and be able to, on a very respectful way, and it takes finesse. There's 50% of people who are moving are upset about moving, divorce, death, change of jobs that they don't really want to have to move. And 50% are delirious over having to move. They're building their dream home, or they're getting married, or whatever. So your stager really needs to have some finesse, and it's not an easy job, and we upset a lot of people, and that's not our intention. But our goal is to sell the home for more money and fast. So that way the clients are making more money and the realtors are making more money, and everybody's happy in the end. And at the time that we're meeting with them, they don't typically understand that, but it's our job to convey that. So it's not an easy job, and you have to really be able to think on your feet. I don't think people realize how much training goes into being a stager, because not only do you have to immediately assess a room, but you have to know about furniture layout. You have to know what the trending colors are. You have to know, how to talk to people, how to read body language. You need to be able to, if somebody's really giving you a hard time, how to navigate still being firm and confident, but yet still respectful. So it's not an easy job, but one of the realtors I support says that we know how to tell you that your baby's ugly. And we have to do that almost for every house in certain rooms or certain areas. It takes a lot of finesse.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because when I talk to agents, one of the things they're hesitant about is like, hey, I'm going to hand over, and I know I had this fear. Hey, I'm going to hand over a very hard-earned client that I spent money on, or I spent time on getting, and I'm going to hand them off to somebody that's potentially going to damage that relationship. So I know one of the things that we do is like, we'll give you a heads up if like, hey, Jill, just a heads up, it's a divorce situation, or hey, just a heads up, like as bad as that bathroom color is, like the wife, picked it out herself, and like we're just gonna have to leave that and deal with it. But what are some things that agents should do to make sure that it's a good handoff? And what are some of the things that y'all do to make sure that relationship doesn't get damaged?
Yes. So very good point. There's a couple multifaceted aspects to this. One is it's very important that the stager is teaming with the real estate company. So it's really important for me to call either you or your transaction coordinator and go, okay, tell me a little bit about the home if you haven't given me notes about it, because I want to know what I'm walking into. I never really want to be surprised, although I have experience with that. I'd rather know if they're going through a terrible divorce, or I'd rather know if they're excited about moving or not excited about moving, or they're maybe sensitive about us talking about their property at all. I mean, I have lots of phone calls like, they don't really want you there, but I need you there. So that gives me a great insight to what I'm walking into. So it's Number one is teaming with the real estate company. And ultimately, we want our realtors to go, hey, I'm going to send in my stager. They don't know if I work for you or my own company, but we're a team. So just like you say, you don't wear multiple hats. You're an expert in selling properties. We're an expert in staging, and you have your expert in painting and all of that. Number two is when we go to meet with the client, we are kind of breaking the ice, just like you do in a meeting setting where you sort of have to break the ice at first. It's really important to kind of understand them. So one of the very first questions I ask is, tell me about your move. So that way I get them talking about their new place and whether or not they have a new place yet. So that way they're talking about themselves. So automatically that relieves a little bit of anxiety because they know about themselves. So then once I start breaking the ice, then we're starting to walk and talk. So that's really key, is to be able to kind of break that ice, get their anxiety down, and just start having a conversation. The other thing that we do is I say, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for 80-20. And that relieves some of their anxiety. So yes, I do have clients that will do every single thing that I ask them to do. That's a personality type. But there's others that are like, well, I'll do the best I can, which is fine. And sometimes that's all they can do, budget-wise, time-wise, lots of reasons.
Yeah.
So you're really kind of wanting to bring down the anxiety so they're listening. If they're high anxiety, they're not listening. The other thing that I think is really important is for the stager to do all the work while she's on property. There's lots of stagers that will say, okay, just write down what I have to say. Well, first of all, I don't think that's good customer service.
No.
Number two, they're only going to write down the things that they want to do.
Yep.
And three, they're not really listening because they're writing. So I want them really present, and I want to be able to read their body language. I want to be able to have a discussion with them. Another thing that I say when I'm with them is, hey, if there's anything I'm recommending that you can't do or you don't want to do, please let me know so that we can come up with plan B. Because again, I need all of us to be successful. And that the only way to do that is to know what to be doing.
So you're like inviting them into, not confrontation, but you're inviting them into like, hey, if there's something that doesn't jive with you, please let me know.
Yes. A good example might be, let's say they have this big, ugly, overstuffed chair that's the only chair they can sit in because they have a bad back. Well, if I say, let's remove it, if I had not ever said, well, if I say something that you can't do, then they would never have the conversation with me to go, hey, I need this chair. It's the only chair I can sit in because of my bad back. Well, then I'll come up with a plan B, because we don't want our clients super uncomfortable in their homes, and we want them safe. So, there's things that we have to do to be able to make sure that they are safe and that they are going to do the majority of the things that we ask them to do.
Yeah. And I got to give you a shout out. I love the fact that you guys type up reports, and a pro tip to the agents out there, edify your stager before they get to them. Put them up on a pedestal so that way they're walking in with that authority and that credibility that you're lending them. But I got to say the reports are great, because I tell people literally, like, they're going to give you a checklist that you can work yourself down. And just like you said, like, some personality types absolutely love a checklist. My wife is one of them. Like,
Yes.
she geeks out on that. And like others, it's like whatever. But I love that. And then also too, with that written report, if they're like, we've been in a market that's been pretty good for the last couple of years, but if they're not having success and maybe they didn't do all the things, then we have something in writing. We can go back to, we're like, well, guys, like, the stager came in, she recommended X, Y, and Z, and you did 25% of it. So like, maybe we should do the things that we already talked about. One of the things that I've learned, just for the agents out there, is review that report with your client. And once again, invite the confrontation of like, hey guys, I know Jill came out. How did that go? Is there anything on there that you disagree with? Is there anything that you guys need help with? Right? Like, usually if I can get them to do 75, 80% of the list, we're in good shape.
Right.
But don't just say like, okay, knock it out. Right? Like, anyway. So, all right. So let's talk about physical staging, because truth be told, this is something that I shied away from for a long time, not only with you, but with the previous staging company that we used before, just because I assumed that if I introduced that concept, that it was something that I was going to end up having to pay for. So when it comes to physical staging, that's obviously a big expense. How do you see the different ways that agents pay for that? Like, give us some options there of what you think.
Yeah. So I would say the majority of our realtors that we support, they pay for the staging consultation, and then they have the clients pay for physical staging. Now, I do have quite a few. The other 50% does some form of pays for all the staging, or they pay a percentage or a dollar amount for the staging. So, for example, I have a few realtors that just know the value of staging. This is really part of their marketing to potential clients. Hey, I'm going to pay for your staging, and they pay for the whole thing. What we do from there is once we visit the home, we send them the realtor the estimate. The realtor decides how much they're going to pay for, and then that's the scope that we implement. So instead of sending the estimate to the homeowner, we send it to the realtor so they can see it first. For the others who do a percentage, I have lots of realtors who do, hey, I'll pay up to 50% of the staging, or I'll pay up to $1,000, whatever it is. That also works very well, because that gets a hesitant homeowner to do it, because now they're not having to foot the whole thing, but yet they get the full benefit of staging.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'll throw out a third option for you, all of you out there in listener land, is we have started offering that as a service for an additional commission percentage point. So we'll basically say, hey, we typically charge, we have a couple different packages, but let's just assume 3%. Hey, we typically charge 3%. For 4%, we'll cover the cost of the staging. Because we're fronting the money, we're taking on additional risk, but assuming we feel comfortable that the home's going to sell, it's an additional profit center. Or I'll offer it as, if maybe I don't want to pay for it, I'll say, hey, we could do this for an extra percentage point, or you could just pay the stager directly. By the way, that's going to be a cheaper option for you. So it kind of appears as like, hey, we're helping you save money in this process. But that's a good way to get it off your plate, where you're still getting the intended result of the staging. And you're not having to foot the bill yourself. So if you're out there and that makes you, the thought of physical staging makes you nervous, realize there are ways to kind of shift the cost onto the consumer. So Jill, wrapping up here, what, if any, other piece of advice would you give to newer agents that are maybe not utilizing staging, or not utilizing it, not leveraging it as much as they should in their business?
Yes, well, you've hit on something earlier where it's really about how you set up staging to your client. I have lots of realtors who are like, I'm going to send in my stager and she's going to tell you all the things that you need to do. And if she thinks you need additional staging, she's going to let you know that. So they've already laid this very confident message. Hey, I'm sending this lady in or gentleman in, and they're going to tell you all the things you need to do, and listen to them. Do the things that that they ask you to do, because it's going to equal a better sale and a better offer. So it's all about the setup. If you're not feeling confident about it, what I would recommend you do is meet with a few stagers in your area. They want to work with you. This is how we make money, is by being your go-to staging company. So they are very happy to educate you. They're very happy to we give our realtors sheets that they can put in their sales packet, so that the statistics are right in front of the client. And if your stager is not giving you that information, ask for it so that it can be in your sales packet. And it's just one of the pieces of paper you go over, and it's a reminder to go over it. And statistics talk. A lot of people like the statistics. There's a statistic out there that, staging has a 400 to 600% return on investment. Did you know that? Probably not, because either one, you're not using staging, or your stager didn't tell you. So get with stagers, meet with a bunch of them if you don't have one, and you're going to click with one of them, and then start a relationship. And the more confident you are speaking about staging to your client, the more likely they are to do it.
Yeah, this is where you have to be a salesperson, right? And really embrace that. And my favorite, Jill, my favorite question is, hey guys, do you want to, or we have the opinion that we want to get as much money as we can out of the property, or do we want to just get what we can for it? And of course, everybody's like, oh, I want to get the maximum out. Okay, right. Because you said that, what I'm going to recommend is, let's have you meet with our stager. And really, guys, if we really want to get the maximum dollar, we've got to do all the things that the stager recommends, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to shut up. Jill, thank you so much for your time here today. We very much appreciate it. We appreciate what you do for our business. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, if they want to engage you to find out more about staging, we're going to put it in the description below, but where can they find you?
Sure. So we are on Facebook, Transformations by Jill. We have our own website, transformationsbyjill.com. You can use our little contact us form on our website, and we are on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, there you guys have it. Jill, thank you again for your time, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Chris. Bye now.